Guys, welcome again to this new video tutorial. In this video again, I'm going to be showing you, explain to you how my dashboard works. So I'm just logging in at the moment, but the user type I'm having here is an administrator. So I'm an admin so far in this system. So if you check back again on this system really this time around, I think you can see this user is actually an admin. So in that case around, if you check here, we have different users. I have the users itself, which means the complete total users, and I can even do the search engine on them by typing anything that I want, and anything that if I add new user, this is a pop-up, how the pop-up responds. And this pop-up comes in as a result of something called a modal. If you're just very keen alert, if you check down here when you say add new user, and look down here on the rear left hand side here, you should be seeing there's something called a hash add new user, which this gives us the result as due to a panel I have here, which gives me a chance to add a new user into the system. You get? So that being that gives us a chance to add a new user. I have this. I also have this part of the system which added the patient, nurse, and admin, and using your password, which then if you have everything and submit, should be impossible to add for a new user. For instance, if I just come down here in the system and I try to say maybe I'm adding new user and I say maybe YouTube, my another new user is YouTube, I can select the user type, let me say it's a patient, and then I click on maybe password as YouTube, like that. If I click submit, it should be possible to submit for my complete user into the system. And I think it should be possible to see YouTube added for us here down. Check here, should have YouTube added, the patient type, blah blah, and the date in which the person was added in the system. Here it can show the total number of people definitely we have, which gives us a complete view and clue on how this will be done. If I'm searching by YouTube, definitely will be there. If I'm searching by name or OSP, will be there. If anything you happen to search, let's out slide. We have another user. Now before I go to another user, let me take you back down the codes. How do they add a new user? Make sure you're on the dashboard. Now here I'm using something called request and also user type. This comes in as a result because of something called add new user, which is definitely something called index page. Now index page is having this, that if insert user ID. Now this is kind of confusing. You don't know where this insertion comes from. This insertion comes as a result from the index page, where we said we would like when someone has been logged in, when this login button is clicked, which is called login, and this login is processed inside something called process.php. If you check down up here, we're trying to say when that login button is clicked, we are going to keep the user who has logged in into the system in essential, meaning we can actually access those given users. So this section you are seeing here is what now brings the configuration into this part of the system in the header, where I'm trying to say if that user is not in the session, then direct that given user to the default page, and that default page is the index page, because the only page next back if you go back one step from the index, from the dashboard, because this header part of the section of the system is attached to the dashboard itself, and I think you can see it up here. So it implies indirectly that if you are doing something like that, you should be in position to have, I'm including up the header section into this part of the system. And here I'm also trying to handle my user type so that I can have all those configuration handled at once to have that, if possible, sorted up in application. If you check down here on application, I also have different type of user type, and I'm handling all those kind of sections so that those given users, I can trigger them off. For instance, having the users, knowing the number of users who have logged in, knowing the number of hospitals added, knowing the wards that we have in the system, knowing the number of nurses we have there, and also knowing the manufacturers who are making those drugs, knowing also the drugs themselves, the total added, knowing the patients we have in the system, and also dealing up with the diagnosis that maybe is configured in the system, and also the appointments that we have, and also maybe my patients that maybe have registered if your user type is a nurse, diagnosis, and else show appointments and manage appointments, which is in the section of the patients themselves. The rest thing that all of those people can try to come in maybe to use is something called the use settings, whereby they can change their passwords and they can log out. Now if I take you back on our system shortly, if you try to cross check here, I have the users. I've explained that to you. The same criteria works into the hospital. But I showed you something here. Add new user, it triggers up something called a model. This is a model. Now this model comes in as a result because I try to figure that here. In my system, I have something called a model which I floated, right? Which say add a model. So there's a span holding a model. I think you can see I'm not using a button, I'm using a link. And this time around a link is pointing to this. So what do I do to get this? Check this very name is what I've happened to add in my system in the part called add a new user. Add a new user, you should have seen it here. So this is it, which is triggering up to get for us a new user, and this is it. So that's the new user that we have in the system. So that triggers up for us the new user and giving us a chance to have the new user added in the system. So don't forget that in mind, that all what we are trying to say there gives us a chance for that. Then when you check here also, these are the details I have in the system. So the same things around that you try to cross check, my friend who was actually using this application so far. As I pass through these things to you, just don't forget, all of my systems are triggered in a modal format, and they are so easy to deal up with. It's some kind of a new approach, which I believe if all other programs can try to adopt to help others, it's a good method. Because if I trigger this, and I call my model, for this model to work, just make sure in your page, footer page, and the header section of the page, you have JavaScript. You have JavaScript there. These are my codes. That is rendering up this application to work. I get it. And this down here is actually a code for. This code is mainly for the tables to make tables responsive. Making our tables responsive, looking into this code. Just like I've said, going back here to user section and having all this sorted up. This gives us a chance to have this. The same thing when you say add hospital, click there. When again you click here, you see a model coming back. But check, when you click here, what do you see? Add a new hospital. So add a new hospital is also here. So this model is here. Now how do I join this independent page? Like add new users, add new hospitals, add new drugs, add new diagnoses, add new functionaries, add patients, add a new word. How do I have all those stuff screen configured that they can be shown up in whatever page I want? The first thing that should be in your mind is this. Make sure there's a part you want it to have it there. Trigger up this function, simple one. It's just a module, data type, module, class that. The next thing, go back to the header section of this page or your page. This is how I call my page. I include them here. I think you can see add a new user. If right now I just disable this part of the page like so, it implies adding new users can't work anymore. When I go back adding users, I can have the users normally, but I can't trigger here. No matter how many times I trigger here, it will not push up because it's not responsive. It's not called for. So if I enable it back, I should be in a position to have that part triggered up. that some of the stuff, all the rest of this page is triggered in that way. So those codes that passes up to give us the chance to have the model open is because of the include page that we're including the other independent pages to have one given stuff within our page. So don't forget to do that. Don't forget also to make sure that we have that sorted up. So in a simple term, thanks for watching this short video. If you find it interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our new channel. Next time we push a new video, you can always be notified. Thank you.